I don't do, if you listen to the show for any length of the time, I don't do the kids today thing. I don't do that. You know why I don't do that? Because every single generation I've ever talked to in my life has said that same thing about the next generation upcoming. I guarantee you Moses was saying this about the next generation. These next generation of Israelites, they're not going to cut it. Tell you what, lazy, worthless. And then that generation said the same thing about the one after them. It's a thing that people do as they get older. And it's a thing I've always refused to do, and this is why. Every generation is filled with turds. And every generation is filled with studs. And there's a lot of people in between. It's not a generation. This generation's great. The boomers are great. The boomers are horrible. Gen Z sucks. Gen Z's great. That's not a thing. Every individual has their own thing. But when I heard this little rant from a former Google employee, I've got to tell you, it did occur to me that there are a lot of people today who really, really need my father.
A day in my life getting laid off at Google. So I woke up to this really ominous text from my boss, and I honestly had no idea what it was going to be about. So I called her the minute I woke up and saw this, and she told me to check the news and my email. So I rushed downstairs to find out that I had lost access to basically everything. I couldn't log into my email or even check my calendar. I called my boss back, and we just sobbed over the phone because she was also finding out about my layoff for the first time today too. I started getting calls from a bunch of my coworkers and started finding out who else was let go on my team and some neighboring teams as well. But I think the worst part is that it seems like no one was consulted on this decision and everyone was just finding out about the layoffs at the same time. It just felt like a really bad game of Russian roulette, and there was no consistency around who was let go. It was also not performance-based, so it just felt really random. I opened up LinkedIn, which honestly was not great for my mental health. There were so many people who were in the same boat that were both equally as shocked and blindsided, but it did help me feel a little less alone. Honestly, I spent so much of the day crying that I just felt so tired from being sad and wanted to do something that would just make me feel better.
Okay, I can't take it anymore. We're going to stop. We're going to stop. All right, I'm only going to spend a brief moment on this, okay? And I'm going to stay calm, all right? I need you to hear me. This isn't just a next generation thing. Young, old, it doesn't matter. I really need you to buck up, and I really need you to stop crying at work. And I really need you to understand something. No, it is performance-based. It is. It doesn't mean every time you get laid off, you're bad or a bad worker. It really doesn't mean that at all. It means that they sat down and they viewed people's values to the company versus what they take away from the company. It's not just whether you provide value. Remember, you take value too when you take pay. You take value. They lay off because they sit down and they analyze, is this juice worth the squeeze? So here's what I need you to do. Please don't whine about your mental health again when you're at Google and you get 16 weeks of pay, 16 weeks of severance pay, when there are people across the country who can't pay the bills right now. And stop talking about sobbing with your boss. And bosses, stop sobbing with your employees, both current and former. I don't know when it happened in this country that employment became some sort of a touchy-feely daycare where we have to have your mental health addressed. But I've got to tell you, Chris, Michael, and I mean this genuinely, I don't give a crap about your mental health at all. Now, I prefer you're doing well, but I'm never going to ask, how's your mental health doing, fellas? Show up on time, get the job done, eat pizza and drink beer while you do it. I don't care. But this is not a daycare, and I'm not your father. And I better never see anybody crying in the office either. Cry somewhere else, all right? Go find your shrink. Stop crying at work. I feel better.